It's time to get sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello, and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show that is about to blind you with science. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight may or may not be an android sent back in time to destroy gender norms and smash the patriarchy. Viva Bianca.
Hello, everybody, and I'm not telling.
And our guest tonight is SciBabe Yvette D'Entremont. Yvette works as a science journalist and bullshitstorm chaser, taking journalists a deep dives, giving talks on surviving fake news, and co-hosting Two Girls, One Mic, the most literary exploration of porn without being drunk texted by your ex.
I majored in college, so I appreciate the deep dive you did on my background. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That was an awkward pause. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, not at all. We're excited to have you. We're excited to start the show. We hope that people will give us a call. V, where can people get started? Oh, I think V's mic may be out for just a moment. So you can give us a call. We're at 512-991-9242. Or you can call the show at tiny.cc/callsex because we're getting started right now.
And I'm back. Sorry about
all right.
that, y'all.
V is here. Let's jump right into it then.
Cool.
Yvette, I am so excited to get to kind of tackle an issue that just lingers and that we hear about time and time again. You know, as long as we've been doing this show, I think people have started to really come around and recognize that gender is not the same thing as sex and that gender isn't binary. But still, regardless of how people feel about their body, they still seem to imagine there being only two sexes. And I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit about the bimodal distribution of sex.
And I think that, no, to be clear, I am not the best expert. As we discussed before the show, I'm not the best expert to talk about this, but I am someone who can talk about this with some degree of not sucking at it. So let's talk about this. I mean, there's no to start with, when people are like, there's only two genders, XY chromosomes. It's like, well, when you look at someone, and you kind of make that visual assessment of male or female, are you looking at their chromosomes? No, you're not. You're looking at a series of clues that let you think male or female. And then there are, and here's the thing, we kind of have those sets of clues, right? But biologically, there are also people who are, quote, in the middle. And I know that might be not the accurate vocabulary, but we have people who are intersex. And you can't say that we only have male and female when we know 100% for a fact that we have people who don't just have XY chromosomes. We have people who are intersex. We have people whose anatomy is not just defined as male or female, who have specific health concerns that go with being intersex or non-binary or being trans. And there are a lot of things that are not, that don't go with the binary. The other thing is you can be XY or XX and not be male or or not be the gender that goes with being those chromosomes, because there's a specific gene within those chromosomes that confers your gender. So it's very interesting that people are like, it's just the chromosomes. It's like, it's actually one gene that can flip within those chromosomes that does it. And I think when people look at it and try to peg a thing, it's try to pigeonhole it to just two genders, it's because there's something so foreign about that to people that, it's like, I've only ever felt like I'm this one gender. I've only ever felt like I'm the gender I was assigned at birth. And it's kind of that same kind of fear and foreignness of the thought that the people used to think about with people being gay, right? So there's that this, I don't understand this. This is a foreign concept to me. I don't understand how somebody's mind could work this way, so it can't possibly be real. So I'm going to deny that it's happening. And we've seen this before. We've been here before. So instead of people saying, let me learn about the science, they're just going into this view of the science not being a thing and going into a deep denial about it instead of trying to learn about it. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah, well, and I see all the time people sort of quoting that like sixth grade life sciences level understanding of XX and XY when we realize that genetics are just more complicated than that. So I'm curious if you can explain it all, how these different genes might be operating with each other and how hormones come into it. I know these are complex ideas, but I'm hoping you can lay it out for us a little bit.
I mean, there are like my brother's trans, so I've had it's so of course I can speak for everyone in the trans community ever because I have a relative. Please don't take that.
Because that's how science works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It means that by osmosis, I've learned everything about the trans community, and I am a rep. No, I try to ally as best I can. Is obviously what that comes down to. But I think a lot of it comes down to hormones. There does seem to be there are studies showing there is some amount of difference in, I don't know if brain structure is the right word, but there do seem to be some slight differences in brain structures. And I'm sure because science changes every 3 weeks, there's going to be some study coming out in a few weeks saying Miss SciBabe said that wrong. So please don't pin me to the wall for that one. Yeah, exactly. At me if you want, but I'll yell at you on Twitter for it and make you feel bad about yourself. But I think that when we try to say it's just biology, it's just this, we leave out a lot of different ways that people can be, that we know for a fact people can be not male or not female or not on this very rigid gender binary. Like, for example, we have Turner syndrome and mosaic Turner syndrome, where somebody's born with just an X chromosome and not an X and not the two of them. Or we have people who are born with an XXY or an XYY. We have a bunch of different ways these kind of sort. So when people say it's just this, it's really inaccurate. Then we also have pseudo-hermaphroditism, which I know is not the word that we use kind of socially to describe it, but these are medical terms to describe when someone has the genetics of someone who would be assigned male or assigned female at birth, but they have either testes that didn't descend or they have ovaries that didn't. There are a bunch of different ways that people can be that can have a gender presentation that's atypical, and I think that when people try to just put it into a box and say you're just male or just female, they're leaving out all this kind of wonderful variety that happens in the human species, and they're saying that you're not valid if you're in this huge spectrum that's kind of beautiful that we made. And I'm like, and I get it, we're secular here, but I think if we're going to try to speak to our large number of religious brethren in the country, wouldn't they think that if God made people in his image, didn't he make non-binary people in his image too?
Well, that's one of my favorite go-to lines as well. If God made people in God's image and there are both men and women, then God is not either or both or, some fun combination therein. I also love that with this particular conversation, adhering to a sixth grade level understanding is somehow considered to be more advanced and more educated, quote unquote. Right? Like no one says, well, I learned about algebra 1, so there can't possibly be algebra 2. In no other area do we prioritize our sixth grade education above the complexity that is, what actually is out there. Except
within the Republicans in Congress.
That's fair point.
I have a snowball, so global warming's a scam.
Right.
Sorry, that's
the island's gonna tip over. Yeah, we can go on. But yeah, I feel like one of the ways that we get here is that sixth grade science textbook that has a paragraph at the end that says and intersex happens sometimes, and it is very much pathologized.
It's a much higher percentage than people realize because it's I think people think it's just the kid that's born with visibly atypical anatomy, and there are a lot of different types of there are a lot of different classifications of intersex that involve having internal anatomy that is not that isn't typical, that has someone presents externally as being female and they have, like I said, testes that haven't descended, etc. cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I read somewhere, I could be mistaken, but it's over 1% of the population that has various types of intersex gender, and I'm not sure whether they're classified medically as disorders or gender assignments. So I don't want to. I apologize if I'm using the wrong terminology for this, but I think the fact that they've been as you phrased it, pathologized it's done us a disservice for a really long time, because instead of pathologizing these, and as it's been done for a really long time, mutilating the genitals of these children when they're born, we should have been learning about the various health issues that come up when someone's born when someone's born intersex, so that they can be able to be helped appropriately as their individual health needs require, as opposed to being mutilated from birth to try to conform into what we see as the quote correct genders.
Yeah, and I do think that people misestimate just how prevalent this is, and how it doesn't necessarily lead to some sort of like major or meaningful pathology or just other medical issues. There are plenty of people who right now are walking around thinking that they are one particular sex, when they're not getting genetically tested and are very likely or very possibly another. That's without even getting into a conversation about what our gender is and how we personally experience it. Our very sex is not as simple and simplified as we're so eager to make it. And I guess I'm just baffled by the desire to dismiss the beauty of variation for a desire to just oversimplify the world.
That just made me wonder. I wonder how many people have found out they're intersex via like an ancestry DNA test that comes back and it's like, here's your XY chromosome, or here's your that has to have been interesting if that's ever happened to someone.
Right. No, I'm excited to see more like widespread genetic testing. I mean, there are definitely some ethical considerations to look at there, but as people are getting better access to an understanding of their own bodies, I'll be excited to see how these ideas maybe kind of shift in the popular culture over, the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it has been up until very recent time, but I'm sure there are areas in the U.S. still where when a child was born intersex, it's not even a question of do we do, like it's just the question, the parents are still just hey, what part of the anatomy do you want to keep? I feel like that's probably a thing that just still happens without a question, and I'm hoping that with more awareness, that's the thing that's going to change. And first we need to stop the attitude from people of only two genders. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to let V grab some calls for us here in just a moment. But I guess I'm curious if you have any insights into maybe the direction of these things. It definitely feels like trans visibility is increasing, and that's brought its own backlash. But I have to feel like we're headed in the right direction. And I guess I'm wondering if that lines up with maybe what you've been seeing as you speak and write publicly.
Well, I mean, as it's already been said by people smarter than me, the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. And I worry right now because we are at a time when we don't know what's going to happen after, even if, and it looks like Joe Biden's going to win this election, even if he wins, we have this very vocal, very horrible section of society that is not going to go away with Trump going away. And I don't know if there's going to be pushback from the person who's definitely going to be put into the Supreme Court. It seems like there's a legitimate push right now to push back on gay marriage, and they might have the votes in the court. Like, there are a lot of things right now in the country that are legitimately terrifying about the chance for gay rights, for LGBT rights, for recognition of LGBTQ validity being pushed back. And that's worrisome. And that's why, even though things have been going forward, things have been getting better, and things generally will over time get better, I think in the short short term, while there are hate groups that are growing in numbers and are and still have at least for a short time the federal government kind of on their team, so to speak. There's a vigilance that needs to be kept high for in order to kind of keep our LGBTQ friends and our trans friends protected, because it's not coming from above.
Yeah, I love the way you made a caveat for that phrase. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice, because I think a key component there is that we actually need to be in a position where we are actively working towards that justice and keeping in mind that it's not just gonna happen one day. Like, there's no such thing as, a happy ending is reassured and all that. So we have to be on the lookout for places where we can actively advocate for that justice.
Yeah, like it doesn't bend on its own. Like it's sure. Nazis left unopposed are gonna knots. I'm just saying. So.
Nazis gonna knots. Well, you've definitely heard V and I say it. I think I'm hearing it from you too, Yvette. Get out and vote, please.
Yes.
Vote.
My live stream every week, I implore people, don't just vote, but I ask you to find a friend who has not registered to vote yet, who is up for voting for Biden, to go register to vote as well. So register to check, and I always I check my voter registration once a week just to make sure that I'm still on there. And when I send in my mail-in ballot, it's gonna go through. So I tell people, please check your voter registration, get a friend to register to vote, and make sure if your state has it, sign up for a vote tracker to make sure that your vote gets counted. It is the only way we're going to get out of this. Wait, I was about to swear, but I don't think I asked if I could swear. Can I swear?
Oh yeah, you goddamn right.
Oh yeah, it is the only way we're going to get out of this fucking mess. Like there's nothing else we can do, and I get it. No, I get it. I'm sure that I'm sure that we're not the types of people who Joe Biden was our first choice for president. Like, he was, out of the people who I knew before, whose names I recognize, he was probably my bottom three. But you know what? I am so fucking stoked to vote for Joe Biden. I want nobody more than Joe Biden to be in that office right now. Give me 4 years of Joe Biden. I'm excited about this. You know why? Because he's not Donald fucking Trump. Because we won't all die. Because there's a vaccine coming out, and maybe it won't cost $1 zillion if somebody who's not a fucking psychopath is in the White House. I'm just saying, I'm terrified. We're in a zombie-infested bus station, and the only bus getting us out of here is the Biden-Harris bus. Oh, there's not Wi-Fi and a gold-plated toilet in the Biden-Harris bus? I don't care. It's getting us away from the zombies. We'll get a nicer bus at the next bus stop, okay? I want out of this bus. Okay, sorry, I just had to.
No, I'm all for getting out of the bus that we're in and making some meaningful changes. And I hope that people are motivated to bend that arm.
If there are, I do also want to jump in real quick and say that, unfortunately, the ACA cannot endorse officially any political candidate on air. So this is not representative of the ACA, but also get out and vote, and you know who we mean.
Yeah, so I mean, I know you can't endorse, but we all know who you're not on the team of, because obviously. But yeah, go out and get Biden into office. Don't you remember how much we loved the Obama Biden memes? It's gonna be Biden Harris memes, and they're gonna be amazing.
All Biden memes. Yeah, that's fair.
Biden Harris memes are going to be so great. I'm excited about that. Like, after 4 years of I don't know about you guys, but because I have an actual diagnosed case of OCD, not just I'm a little compulsive about things, so I say I have OCD. I wake up at 3 a.m. and check damage report, what's happened now, every night. I'm looking forward to
doom scrolling, huh?
Yes. I miss being able to. Do you guys miss being able to sleep and not being terrified that we've accidentally kofefed ourselves into war with North Korea? I want November 3rd. I want even though I know we're not going to have the official election results yet, I want to sleep well that night. That's all I want.
I don't know. I've got an anxiety disorder. I haven't slept well since I was 10.
It was funny. I'd never had TMJ before. The first year Trump was in office was when I got TMJ, and it has not gone away since.
Oh my God.
So, I literally started grinding my teeth when that man took over.
Correlation, causation, column A, column B,
Who knows?
V, who do you want to start with tonight?
Yeah, let's jump into some calls. I'm actually very excited to talk with Claire in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump in and talk with Claire. Claire, how can we help you today?
Hello, V. Hi. What I wanted to speak about is a little, I suppose I should say, trigger warning. Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay. When I was young, I got my breast exceedingly early. I was 8. It terrified my mother, and she did things that were not advisable in her attempt to get rid of them. I'm from Nigeria. We were Catholic. She was trying to keep me looking like a child.
Mm-hmm.
So she would try to get rid of them. I don't want to describe what she did. And I did confront her about this before she died, and she did apologize, although I don't think she understood how bad it was, because she truly thought she was trying to save me from being seen as something that will appeal to a man. Really. Yeah. So she even went in again, because I was quite young, shaved me down there because I got puberty early, to keep me looking as young as possible, to keep me out of what she felt were the minds of men who could prey on me. So, right now, when I think of my gender, I can't, like the call screener asked me, what are your pronouns? And when I said she, her, it made me feel uncomfortable.
Sure.
I can't say if being uncomfortable is because she did things to me that now makes me just associate everything that happened with my becoming more feminine as that's all abusive, that was all horrible, oh my God. Or if it's, I truly do feel that, because I'm not a dude. I know I'm not a man. I'm not someone that says, oh, I am now, I'm not someone that will say I am now a trans man. I know I'm not, but I don't know if I am non-binary or if I just think I am, because everything attached to me becoming more feminine started out with so much negativity. That's the best
Yeah.
term. Right.
That is a very valid question, and something
terrifying. It took me years for that, because I grew up Catholic. I had to literally leave Nigeria to come to terms with just being attracted to women, and to come to terms with, oh, it's not just women, it seems to be everybody. I don't care what a person looks like. I just care if they're pretty and have a nice bum. So that's just,
we are all with you on that.
Yeah. So when it took me years to get out of the Catholic mindset, and then try to have a conversation with my mom, and they did not take that well, so I never brought it up again. But then I now finally come to terms with, like, okay, I'm definitely pan-romantic. I'm not sure what's sexual, but that doesn't seem relevant for me. I'll be whatever I need to be with whomever I'm with. I feel I can be fine with that. But I then got to terms with being an atheist, which came right before my mother died, which was not fun with every conversation that I had with all my family members, because they're so Catholic and they cannot know, and they are Nigerian. They will think I am the literal devil, or be worried that I'm going to go to hell, and it will stress them out, because they won't stop talking to me, but it will cause them real pain, and I don't want to do that. I can say I'm not Catholic, but I cannot say I am an atheist and the God thing is not real to me. So, but then once I got past that and I started therapy, it was like, oh, I'm getting to a good place. I'm still depressed. I still have bad months, but I started therapy. I've gone back to school. And then I was like, okay, so this gender thing that I've been ignoring for a long time is now banging at the back of my head because I couldn't ignore it. So I don't know. If me saying, because I look at my body and I am not certain that I don't like it because I'm non-binary, or I don't like it because so much negativity was attached to it. I don't know what to say about it. I can't.
No,
I don't know.
sounds like there's a lot of body dysphoria because of this trauma you experienced. And that body dysphoria can be very much tied to gender. And, the distinction between gender dysphoria and body dysphoria, I don't necessarily know if that is useful to break things down in that way. I can definitely say that your gender is based on a lot of things, and some of them are biological, but it's very multifactorial. And this experience, this traumatic experience that you've gone through, can definitely impact the way that you feel about your body and the way you see your body. And so I would suggest that your trauma experiences can sort of block off and lock away parts of yourself. And if you're experiencing maybe a lack of femininity or a repulsion towards your femininity because of this trauma, or because of some other factor, or because of any good goddamn reason, then you have every right to identify as non-binary or however else you choose to see yourself. I don't know that we can necessarily run these things to ground and give you a gender diagnosis and tell you what your gender is and why. But I do want to say that it's valid if you're having these questions and wondering if this is yourself.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that you've explored therapy, and hopefully that's something you're still exploring today, because this sounds exactly like the kind of thing that somebody who is experienced in talking to people about trauma and about gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia would be able to tackle with you. But I do kind of want to echo what Christy said. I have some friends who ask me, I identify as asexual, and I don't know if it's because of depression or because of some like hormone thing or because it's just the way I am. Do I have the right to identify as ace if I don't want sex for X reason? And the answer that I give them is yes. if you do not like having sex for whatever reason, and that is something that you ascribe to as part of your identity, it doesn't really matter where it came from as long as you are addressing that core issue in healthy ways. So you can be non-binary for multiple reasons, and there's no purity test. It's not you have to be born this way or else it's invalid. You can come to this identity however you need to. And my only caveat there, of course, would be to make sure that it's not a band-aid for a larger situation, that it is something that maybe you are exploring alongside traditional therapy to deal with the more traumatic angle. And also, gender is fluid. It will change over time if you experience it enough. And it sounds like you are kind of going through that in your views of people romantically and possibly sexually. You're realizing, oh, I don't care what their gender is as long as they've got a nice butt. And for me, I know that correlated with my own coming out as non-binary, because once I started realizing that I didn't factor gender into my attraction to other people, I started breaking it down for myself and realizing that, oh, maybe I don't have to fit in just one box or another. So it sounds to me like there are multiple paths you could take. And as long as you're taking one that is healthy for you and hopefully guided through conversations with a good therapist, you can call yourself whatever you need to be happy.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Yvette, let me. Sorry.
To your point about gender fluidity, like you don't have to stick yourself into a box while you're trying to figure it out. Like it could be that you're going to figure out after this is over, after a certain amount of therapy, this was induced by the shame that was brought on by your mom, and you needed kind of space away from I don't know if this makes sense, but space away from your assigned gender to figure it out and to get comfortable again, and to kind of identify or to kind of be in a gender non-conforming or gender fluid space for yourself. Or it could be that you just figure out that you're gender non-conforming or gender fluid or gender non-binary. These are all fine possibilities. I think give yourself the space to explore being gender fluid and find out where you are in there, whether it's something that you were born with or whether it's something that happened to you, because either one is valid and you're valid.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. It's just because you said about connection to my femininity, and it's just more like connection to my breast sometimes. It's like if I could just make them so much smaller so that I could occasionally forget that they're there, but not have them fully gone, I would be in like an ideal spot. But that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, and that is certainly something that many cis women do pursue, and your focus on or opinions about a particular part of your body does not necessarily need to inform your gender. My go-to is basically no one thing makes you a woman or makes you a man. You are you, and if you don't like a part of your body and want to take steps to make it look better according to your own tastes, or to alleviate dysmorphia, again, talk with a therapist. But you can be a woman and want smaller breasts. That's completely okay and doesn't necessarily have to impact your gender. But if being non-binary is something that you find solace in and something that makes you feel more confident as a person, then that's also an option for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Finding you guys has been therapeutic.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you for calling in.
Just say again, Claire. You're valid. Thanks for calling.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day. And stay safe.
Appreciate it.
Bye. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I liked talking with Claire.
She was very sweet.
Can we talk to Ellie in Arizona?
Great. Bring it on.
Sure.
Yeah. Ellie, hello. How are you tonight? How can we help?
Hi, I'm great. It's Elle, but that's cool.
Elle. Yes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all no, totally fine. But yeah, you guys were talking about intersex conditions earlier, and various surgeries and mutilations and things like that. And I happen to be the parent of a child with an intersex condition, or what's sometimes considered to be an intersex condition. And we wound up getting surgery for her. It was not at birth, but it was pretty early in life. And I didn't know if you guys wanted to explore that and talk about our reasons or...
Yeah, please.
Like that. Okay. Yeah. So... when she was about 11 months old, we were about to lose our health insurance. And so it was kind of then or never. So that was kind of the first factor that played into it. There were also physiological things. Her condition is technically adrenal, but because of the imbalances in hormones, it presents with intermediate genitalia. And so there was a structural thing where she would have been prone to lots of like urinary tract infections and things like that. And I will admit there was a piece of it, much smaller piece, but a piece of it that kind of wanted her to be able to have a quote unquote normal life. Like I didn't want her to get teased in a locker room, things like that. And I do question that part of my reasoning, even though I know that the other two reasons were perfectly valid. But yeah, and so we went ahead and had the vaginoplasty. She, presented in every other way as female. She had all the female anatomy and the female chromosomes and everything like that. And so, yeah, we went ahead and got her a vaginoplasty, which, she's never had any problems with medically. And we've talked a little bit about it personally, and she is fine with it. She does identify, she's a teenager now. She does identify as female. And so, yeah, it's, that's kind of basically
don't worry,
in a nutshell.
We're not judging you. Just to clarify, like these are not decisions. We've never been in that position where we had to make that decision for a child, like with all the other complications that come along with that. So like this is a judgment-free zone. This is Planet Fitness minus the sweat. So
I totally, I totally appreciate that. But you know, there were words used that are kind of derogatory, and I wanted to kind of present just like the most minor of alternative views, where like sometimes it really is called for. And, you know, like personally, I have 2 sons.
I think that's an important distinction.
No, thank you for.
So I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. No, thank you for pointing that all out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, like, and we can contrast it with the last call a little bit. When we are talking about any of these medical procedures, I mean, oftentimes, whether it's because of a gender-related issue or a sex-related issue or just some other medical issue, parents have to step in and make these calls. And that is always something we're going to support. A medical doctor working with the parents or with the individual to do something that's going to encourage and promote health. We're totally on board. The contrast or the concern is when it steps into an area where we are kind of stifling variation and becoming hand-wringy and uncomfortable and trying to impose a certain value. That doesn't mean in the least bit that she shouldn't get the best possible medical care. And it sounds like that's a decision that you needed to make. And we, of course, support that.
Yeah, you made a medically valid and necessary decision for your child. There's nothing wrong with what you did, and there's nothing wrong with making those decisions.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you very much for the validation. I appreciate that. but I kind of feel that way. Like I've felt that way when I decided to call, because I just, you know, some people are very vehement about that kind of thing, and I just wanted to present the other side. And that's
I want to be clear. There are different situations for different people when it comes to a child that's been born intersex, obviously, because there are going to be different complications with the anatomy for each, and as you said, the hormones for each child. So you made the right decision for your child, as is clear.
Right. Well, thank you. So. And, you know, unless you guys have any questions, and that's pretty much it.
No, we so appreciate you calling.
Just, are you registered to vote? That's all I want to know.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Nailed it in.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Glad to hear it.
All right. Thanks, Elle.
Bye.
All right. So we've actually got quite a list of calls. I do want to make sure we continue to continue with the interview. Let's take one more for now and then jump to whoever is left in about 15, 20 minutes.
Cool.
Great. Let's do it.
All right. Let's talk with Robin in New York. Robin, hi. How can we help you tonight?
I was wondering if we could get into a little more about the physical changes that happen during gestation. And I understand from the reading that I've done that the physical gender is set fairly early on in gestation, but then the brain development happens later in gestation, and that's where the physiological, mechanical differences occur that you know, I'm just talking about the physical structures here, the very basic genetics of what's going on, and the gestational differences. And I think it's important that we discuss this so that we get this information out there so that people can understand beyond the duality of only just two physical genders. That's why I wanted to bring this point up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's an oversimplification, but I feel like what you're asking around is this idea that maybe sexual hardware develops and then sexual software develops later and may not necessarily be entirely congruent, which seems to potentially be a valid understanding of things. We're still developing our understanding of how these things operate. I've seen some different fMRI research and some other ideas that might point to that idea, but it seems to still be really developing. Do y'all have anything to maybe add to that?
I wish I did. Unfortunately, this is not. Yeah, this is not my area of speciality of childhood development stages.
That said, I do know that two of my favorite trans ladies, Katie Montgomery and Saint Eve, are going to be putting out a video on the science of transsexuality and transgender people very soon. I've retweeted it on my Twitter page. I will continue to be boosting that. So that is going to hopefully be a really great beginner kind of primer for people who are skeptics, who want to be supportive and want to be allies and want that language and that scientific understanding. So I do not think that we have the scientific knowledge to fully answer your question, but that is definitely a resource that's coming up very soon that I will be broadcasting from my own personal pages.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'll say I have a small collection of different research materials that I can make sure to put in the show notes for this episode. And even with all of that, I think it's beautiful and important that we're looking to understand these things, that we're increasing our knowledge and we are creating a better scientific data set to be able to wrap our head around some of this very confusing and difficult to pin down information. Even as we collect all of that data, though, I think it's very important that we recognize that while it may help people confirm or maybe better understand themselves, that we need to trust that people are who they say they are. And your personal experience is more important than whatever the results of a particular test or our understanding of fMRI or hormone research or anything else.
Exactly. Those are great points, all. The reason I bring this up is that I live in a very rural area, and I interact with a lot of conservatives who see things in very, very binary ways. And I've been trying to develop the language to reach people and get them to understand that it is deeper, and it is a physical thing. Because a lot of times, people that I talk to simply discount the personal experiences that people are going through. And I try to get these folks to understand that no, there is a physical component. This isn't just people randomly deciding to do things. There's actually a hardwired physical component between both the physical DNA versus the as you put it, the software. And that's why I think that is good for us to mention this periodically from time to time when we're discussing this topic, so that we can make sure that we understand the scientific background of how these things are developing in the human species, and I think that this is a very important component that we, even though, as you pointed out, is in its infancy, this is vital that we explore this and we keep talking about this and we keep reminding the doubters that no, there actually is physical evidence to support these things that you folks over there on the other side are so eager to write off.
Exactly. And I really just want to commend you. Thank you for being committed to explaining these things to people who would push back on them. I know for me, I spend a lot of my time, maybe too much of my time. I'll be talking about that with my new therapist from Glimmer. I spend a lot of time online trying to explain this to people. And it does take a lot out of me, especially because I happen to be non-binary, and as I'm coming to realize, probably accepting the trans label too. And so for me, it can be extremely exhausting and emotionally draining. And the thing that makes me feel the best and the most supported and the most seen is to have other people who have done the work of educating themselves come to that defense as well and be like, hey, I might not be a part of this community, but here are the facts. Here's what I've learned. Here's what you can do to be more supportive yourself. That by itself is a huge, huge thing. So thank you for doing the work and asking the questions. That's very helpful to people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. This is a great show.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Well, Yvette, I'm glad you're here because I get to take the opportunity to apply the SciBabe label to a lot of these questions that come up time and time again. No matter how often we talk about the bimodal nature of sex, or no matter how often we talk about the kind of junk science behind porn and sex addiction. these myths are just so prevalent. And so I'm hoping you can maybe walk us through a little bit around this industry and some of the bullshit that goes with it.
So I as a normal scientist does, I run a podcast in which we review the plots of pornos because I had a normal childhood. Science. No, so we watch long form porns, like we've watched a 4-hour and 13-minute long full season of an Archer live action parody porn. It was amazing.
That's remarkable.
So Tommy, we actually have a favorite actor, not actor as in terms of his acting. He's SAG-AFTRA. Like he does actual acting outside, like with his clothes on outside of porn. Tommy Pistol is amazing. He's actually a good actor. And he played like the voices he does. Like he sounded exactly like the voice actor who does Archer, but like it was, and the name of the parody was Stryker, but like he also played Horat in the Borat parody, and from that we birthed. I promise I'm going to get into porn addiction in a minute, but I need to tell you why.
Important, yeah. Tell the people.
I need to tell you why porn is amazing and why there is something fun and delightful to the ones with a script. From Horat and from Tommy's acting was birthed the Horat challenge. What we want people because he stays in character while he's having sex, and that's the only time we ever watch the sex. That's the secret to porn reviewing is we don't actually watch the sex. We just watch we literally just watch the plot. Like I mean, if we watched all of the sex, it would chafe way too much. Anyways, but this is the Horat challenge. When you're at that special moment and things are getting really heated and things are getting really close, just try to take the moment to say with all the conviction you can muster, very nice, and see if everybody in the room can keep their swing going. And if you cannot, you have to admit that there is acting in porn. I'm not wrong, and you know it. So
yeah, little tip for all of our edgers and gooners out there.
Oh yeah. Now here's the thing. I like at one point there was one time I was having some sexy times with my husband, and the thought popped into my head. Take the Horat challenge. Take the Horat. And I could not get the words out. I'm like, man, there is acting. And it made me realize, like, yeah, there's some fucking acting in porn. Anyways, but as for porn addiction, let's get on to that. We actually had a porn researcher on our show, and she's like, no, there's no such thing. It's just, there doesn't seem to be like, yeah, like you can take anything that gives you a little hit of dopamine and say this causes an addiction. But the types of things that cause a real, like, significant, holy crap, you're going to be, hitting the button on the hamster's going to hit the button on the wheel type dopamine spikes are cocaine. Like, it's not the same as cocaine and opiates and all the other things. We also like to say that sugar causes an addiction. Mm-hmm. Sugar itself doesn't cause addiction. We actually can form more of an addictive behavior with food as a whole than we do with just one macronutrient. So that's a fun little aside. But no, like, people are not addicted to porn. People can get into some unhealthy habits with it, but sure. People aren't robbing liquor stores to get money to buy porn. People are not stopping going to, like, it is very rare when someone has an addiction to I hate using the word addiction. When someone has such a problem laying off of staring at naked people that it interferes with their life. This is not the case for drugs, for alcohol, for other substances. So when I hear people say there's porn addiction's a thing, it's like, no, I think when people, it always seems to be people who are, how to phrase this nicely, rich old white guys with a lot of, with just access and time that are like, sorry, I struggled with addiction to access to really gorgeous women and to time with my left hand. Like, this seems to be the case every time someone says they have a porn or sex addiction. It's to make up for an affair they had or for neglecting their family. Like, it's never just some person who jerked off a little bit too much after work, like, and missed dodgeball practice. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'll definitely recognize, like, as a sex therapist, I work with a lot of folks who feel that their sexual habits, their pornography use has really meaningfully destroyed their life in a lot of ways. And I want to
really?
recognize that out of control sexual behavior is behavior that feels out of control.
Huh.
And that there can be some of that experience, and there's research and data to support that sort of like subjective reaction, but it is so meaningfully different on both a
Yeah.
chemical level, on a social level, on every meaningful way
Yeah.
than the addiction process that we see with cocaine, with heroin,
Yeah.
with even things like alcohol.
We cheapen the word addiction when we
Very
try to
much so.
say, yeah, it's like I mean I've seen people try to quit cigarettes even, and that, like, knowing that it's slowly killing them, knowing that they have, like, it's when you get to the point where you're sucking it down out of your trach, like, that's an addiction. Okay, but something that you just really, liking touching yourself to images of women touching penises is not an addiction, it's being human. So last I checked. But it's like I said, anything that's pleasurable, you can develop an unhealthy set of habits with. But there doesn't seem to be good evidence that we interact with porn in that way. Like, we can interact with it unhealthily, not in an addictive manner, though.
Yeah, and it's really problematic just because of the treatment industry that's sprung up around it.
Yes. It's exploitative is a huge part of it. It shames people for sex. And here's the thing: how do you know when you're no longer addicted to sex and or porn? Is it when you're down to, like, only touching yourself like once a week? Like, how little do you need to want sex in order to be cured from this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where's the litmus.
Well, coming from a very evangelical, conservative Christian background, I have seen so many of my guy friends, and even to an extent family members, struggle with this feeling of being failures and being addicted and needing help. And it's really, like, connivingly smart on behalf of this industry that preys on, you need to come to church every Sunday and cleanse yourself spiritually and have things to be guilty about that will spur you to, cling tighter to this set of rules that we've laid out for you, than to find something as ubiquitous and as human as enjoying sex and enjoying masturbation and saying, oh, that's bad, and if you do it more than X times, then it's an addiction, and the only cure is spiritual. Which, okay, like, that by itself should be a flag that it's not actually an addiction. If you're saying this is an addiction and the cure is spiritual, the cure is prayer, the cure is being cured of your sins, like, that by itself, like, throws the whole, like, medical concept of addiction for this into shadow for me.
I feel like prayer will work just as well for porn addiction as it worked for ending school shootings, as it's worked for hoping that Trump will die of COVID. I mean, survive COVID. Sorry. I would never hope for the other thing.
Well, it is a complex idea, because we have this society that is full of people that want and or need sex or sexuality of some sort. I mean, we're here doing this show for a reason, right? If this was just a silly part of ourselves that we could, put it away in a box and get rid of forever, so much of our world would change. The reality is we need sexuality. Many of us do, in various forms, in various ways, and to various degrees. But as a society, it's an important part of who we are. And there are so many roadblocks, so many barriers, and so many things that get in the way that it creates this very aberrant and oftentimes harmful or damaging behavior for many of us. I like to liken porn to golf. It can be very expensive. It can take up a ton of your time. It can get in the way of your relationship, but it's not inherently addictive in any kind of meaningful way.
I was about to say, and there's a joke here about stroke number.
Stroke numbers, about old white guys. I mean, there's a lot to work with there. What is a bag of club
something
or a club bag with that other than just a bag of dicks? But anyway.
All right. Do
man.
we want to jump into these last 3 calls before we get into this last round of interview questions?
I was just gonna say one thing to your point about us needing sexuality. I think a lot of times we have a tendency to downplay the importance of our sexual needs and say, sex isn't the most important thing. We'll get into a long-term relationship or a marriage with someone that we're not sexually compatible with, or that we're not sexually compatible with enough. And then after saying it's not important, the sex isn't important, everything's good enough, we'll blow up a marriage because we went out and hunted for the sex that we wanted, or because the other person hunted for the sex that they wanted, or I think we need to, on some level, it's not the most important thing, but having a sex life that keeps you happy is at least part of the picture, and we have to honor that about ourselves.
No question.
Definitely. All right, let's jump in. Let's talk with Torbin in Arizona. Torbin, hi, you're on the air. How can we help you tonight?
Torbin.
Yeah, so first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to V because being non-binary as well, it's really good to see representation. I don't get to see a lot of fellow envies.
Hello, fellow envy. What can we help you with?
So I am wanting to legally change my name, but it's really complicated because so I'm a second-year medical student, and so normally I would wait to get this done, but I need to do it now. Otherwise, I will be dead named on my medical license forever, and that's a really difficult process. But the reason why I'm hesitant to do it now is because I come from a very evangelical family. And so I don't want to be, I'm not out with them about that. I am out with them about being atheist and being gay, but they weren't super supportive. So I'm hesitant to come out to them about that. So that's just kind of why I'm trying to figure out if I want to start that process now or if I should wait.
Sure.
Yeah. Oof. I mean, I totally get the timing of that. That makes so much sense that you'd want to get that done now.
Are you changing your first and last name or just first name?
Just my first name.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just trying to think. It's like I know part of obviously switching it over is so that you're no longer dead named. I'm like, you can start the legal stuff and then slowly ease your family into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like getting 2 beta fish into a tank so they don't kill each other. Just slow.
Give it a little time.
Give it but I mean, I changed my name sophomore year of my parents got a divorce. It was messy. I took my mom's maiden name, so I went from an uncomplicated last name to a complicated one because I'm smart. But yeah, it's I understand the I need to get this done now, but it's get it done now. You want it done now. Don't wait until you have to change a zillion different medical forms or a zillion different legal forms after you're out of medical school. And congratulations, by the way. And I hope you're doing okay in med school. It sounds like hell right now. But you can do that now and ease them into it. At least that's what I would do.
Yeah, the medical school part is kind of hell right now. Our curriculum has been adjusted for COVID. We're learning about COVID as it's happening, and the science keeps changing. So,
oh my gosh.
The idea that you're taking on extra bureaucracy and paperwork right now is a little remarkable in its own right. But I want to validate just the challenge of all of this. Rudy B was on the show a couple of weeks ago and shared their story about preparing for name change and contacting their family. I'd love to pull up that clip for you and see if we can't drop that in the show notes for you after this episode is over. But whatever you choose to do, I guess I just want to take a moment and recognize that anxiety is valid, that it makes sense, and that if you don't feel accepted, that fear is important. Now, I might be with Yvette and encourage you to push through, but I don't know you or all of the details of your life. And if you don't feel prepared for that, that's reasonable as well.
Thank you. I appreciate all your input on that.
And I mean, it's worth pointing out as well. I'm I'm with my co-hosts here that if this is the time you want to do it, you should do it unless there is a now I haven't gone through the process of legally changing my name, although it is a different name than I was born with. Now, can you let us know, is there a form that your parents have to fill out? Is there a reason they should be involved in this process, or is this just something that will no doubt spark conversation later down the line?
They don't have to be involved at all. I just have to. I'm originally from Colorado, so I'd have to just go through the court there. But it's more so they're still in my life.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're just going to not ask about it. But I'm expecting them to be at my medical school graduation, and if that name comes up, they're going to have a lot of questions, and especially because my dead name is very religiously significant to my family.
Mm-hmm.
This is another reason why I kind of wanted to change it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Will it spark a lot of conversation later on?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't think of a more awesome coming out moment than going up to get your medical degree under your new name and be like, bam. But also, I think here, and this is just speaking from my experience, I was like you. I came out as bisexual first and then atheist, and that was it for a while. And I only just this year started talking to my family about gender identity and haven't officially come out or said, hey, can you call me V instead of my other name? And can you use they, them pronouns? Because I know they're not going to. I know it. And there's this part of me that's like, okay, I can either deal with the dead naming and deal with the aggravation and know they don't know better, or deal with the dead naming and know they do know better and just have decided not to accommodate me. And for me, it is a battle that I choose to pick. So I'm going by V. Everyone knows that that's my name now. That is what comes up when you Google me. But also Google outs me as non-binary anyway. So if they Google me, they would just know. But also I think this is for you. And it should only ever be for you and for your future. And if they don't buy in, or if this is a conversation and they're like, we're not going to call you that, that's a very real possibility. And then you have the right to decide how you want to deal with that. And it could be just a battle you decide you don't want to fight, and that's fine. You're not less of a non-binary person because you allow somebody to call you a name that they prefer. That means that they're being a dick and that you're being accommodating and choosing your battles and investing your emotions wisely. But yeah, for me, it would be go get it done because you have a valid reason that this is one, you need to do it, and it makes total sense. If you want to come out when you get your grad degree, like that would be amazing, but that's just my opinion. And also understand that this might be a thing that they just don't accommodate, and then you get to decide how you react to that. And there is no right non-binary way to do that. You can accommodate them not accommodating you, which makes you the bigger person and makes you a better person. Or if it's too emotionally stressful, you can decide to put up some boundaries there. But yeah, I'd say go for it. And also temper your expectations, because unfortunately there are still people who just can't or refuse to get it.
And there was some really good advice that Dan Savage from the Savage Lovecast gives out fairly regularly when someone's talking about coming out to their parents and them not accepting either them being gay or trans or non-binary. And it's that as an adult child of adult parents, one thing that you have to leverage over your parents is your time. So if they're not being accepting, if they're being like even if you want them in your life, you can say to them, look, I'm giving you a year to get on board with this. I told you this now, this might have thrown you, but you have a year to wrap your head around this. If you're still being a dick about it in a year, you're cut off. So it might jar them. It might, I get that, but they have a finite amount of time before you go, all right, I'm not putting up with you so I mean, I don't know what your parents are like. I hope they're kind, accepting people, but if they're giving you the business after a certain amount of time and it's emotionally abusive and it's just making you and you're being dead named and being made to feel like you're lesser than, put a time limit on that, put a cap on it, because you're at the end of the day, your gender identity is valid and you're feeling feelings are valid. So I hope that if your family is not respecting that, you'll put a cap on when you're going to allow yourself to be treated unkindly, if that's the reaction from them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I want to be sensitive in putting my story anywhere next to V's or to yours, Torbin, because it sounds like this name is triggering. It's uncomfortable and has like some deep roots to it. And if that's the case, and it's not how you want to be called, then everything that we've said is incredibly important to remember. I want to say for my own story that I still allow or even actually prefer and choose that my family, that my old friends continue to call me by my birth name. Whenever I see my two best friends from high school are still two of the most important people in my life. And when they occasionally call me Christy because they're, talking to somebody I've met more recently, it always throws me off a little bit, makes me a little bit uncomfortable. And, my own gender experiences and my own like religious history with my birth name and those kinds of things aren't as painful and triggering as many, many other people's stories. But I do want to say to you and to anybody else listening that it's also valid to enjoy that kind of time capsule, that piece of your life, or maybe that opportunity to identify with maybe who you used to be in some way.
Yeah,
So
thanks for
it's a whole lot of options,
guys. Like that helps a lot.
Well, congratulations on second year of med school, and good luck as you continue this process. Feel free to call back in and let us know how it goes. If you have the conversation with your family, if they take it well, we'd love to hear some good news. If they don't take it well and you want to vent or get examples of next steps, or just feel some community, feel free to jump back in and give us another call.
For sure, that'd be awesome. And maybe someday when I'm out of residency and this COVID thing isn't a huge deal, I can come hang out in Austin.
Oh,
hey,
yes.
Yay.
Check out the library.
Definitely.
It's a good time.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Torbin. Have a good rest of your night.
Bye.
All right. We've got Penelope and Purple on the line. Yvette, should we talk to Penelope or Purple?
Oh, let's just go. Let's go Penelope, because alphabetical order. Why not?
All right, there we go. All right, Penelope in Oklahoma. How can we help you tonight?
Hi. So I fairly recently, in the last 2 months, have deconverted from Christianity. And part of that process, I'm questioning everything that I thought I knew, because my whole identity was wrapped up in Christianity, and I'm not that anymore. So I recently, before I deconverted, realized that I was demisexual. And so, not having any real sexual desire until I had a deep emotional bond, I thought that's what everyone experienced. Didn't realize that I was, that was a thing that was not the quote-unquote norm. And I'm wondering if maybe I have some repressed bi or pansexuality, because I do have attraction to men, and being raised super religious, having attraction to men, just lean in real hard to that. And I'm trying to figure out if I've been repressing some other part of my sexuality, or if I'm just overthinking this and I need to calm the fuck down.
Well, congratulations on making it out. This is probably an exhausting period of time for you.
Yeah.
I remember this. So on top of everything else going on in the world right now, there's this you have to deal with. But it sounds like you're doing it right. You're not just stopping at one thing. You're also saying, okay, well, if my whole identity was this, how else is that affecting my life, and what other things should I start questioning and looking into? So kudos to you on that for sure.
Thank you.
It's very I feel like everybody on the call so far tonight have spoken very deeply to me and my experience, because I also identify as demisexual. and was also very surprised that that wasn't how everybody just was. And to this day, the idea of like seeing someone and automatically like thinking about having sex with them is just so foreign to me. It's like, I can aesthetically appreciate somebody, but like, that seems weird. Personally, not kink shaming or anything.
No, like, I may want to draw you, but I don't want to fuck you. Like,
there you go. There you go.
Nice.
And I think that a lot of the way that bisexual women are portrayed in media is part of this, right? Because there is a stereotype of the woman who was attracted to other women that is very voracious and very sexualized and very overt, and
must be non-discriminating. If you're bisexual, then you'll take anybody is sort of the message.
Right. Yeah, and you'll take everybody in exactly the same way, and you're going to start embodying the male gaze, which is problematic by itself. And so, yeah, there are a lot of assumptions about bisexual people, and especially bisexual women, that are very harmful, especially to somebody who is just trying to figure things out and is already demisexual, which is something that isn't well represented on TV or in the media. So, yeah, this is definitely all wrapped up. Bring in the religious component, and oh boy, this is a good of fun stuff for us to unpack. But I think the thing I would leave you with myself today is take a breath. It's okay if you don't know today. It's okay if you don't know next month. It's okay if it takes years for you to figure out exactly what you like and who you are. There is no rush. There is no timeline. However you decide to come to this is the way that it's supposed to be. And if it turns out that you maybe start going to therapy and start talking about some of the maybe repressed sexual desires that you've got, if they are there, that will probably help a lot. So I highly recommend that if you're not already in therapy. But also just maybe pick up on things, because for me, I didn't realize I was bi until I started realizing that I liked looking at women's butts more than guys' butts. Like, and it wasn't even like a conscious thing. I was sitting in the library one day and I watched this girl walk by. I was like, man, she's got a nice butt. Oh, fuck. One moment where it all just kind of snapped into place. So
it's like, it's not just that the butts are nice, it's that I want to touch the butts.
Becomes a problem. It's a concern.
And that's when I knew.
But like, I'm also engaged. Would have been married March or like late March, but obviously that got thrown out the window.
Sorry to hear it.
And
Oh, just sorry to hear that that y'all's life was impacted in that way. I didn't mean to throw off your flow, other than to recognize that
you're good.
this thing is a total pain in the ass to all of us. And I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that part of it.
Yeah, like 3 days before our wedding, like everything got canceled. We had already changed venues, thinking that maybe we could skate by. There's been a lot of good things coming from it. We got a venue that we could never afford because of all of this, and they're like keeping the price. And so like a lot of good things have happened, but I should be married at this point, but also like I should be married and I'm questioning my sexuality. So that's part of like the internal panic of like, oh my God, what if I'm making a huge mistake? Like, I love the person I'm engaged to.
Here's the thing: are you still attracted? The good thing is being bi. If that turns out to be your orientation, or pan, means that you're still attracted to men.
But am I going to feel like there's some part of my identity that I never got to explore, or am I even valid as a bi-pan person if I've never even explored that half of my sexuality? Like,
it's
is a straight person is a straight person straight if they're still a virgin?
Yes.
So you're bi even if you haven't had sex with a woman yet.
Okay, but the yet is the thing. It's like
Yeah. No, I mean, it
Sorry.
is a real conversation that
Oh yeah.
have you had conversations about this with your partner? Do they know where you're at? Do they know that you're questioning things?
Yeah. And they're really supportive, and they're like, I love you. Like, I love you whether you're straight, bi, like whatever. I don't want you to feel like you're regretting this. And I don't want you to feel like I'm standing in the way of you being yourself. But at the same time, like, I don't want an open marriage. Like,
they're not open to you exploring,
you know what I mean?
it.
Like,
yeah.
And like, so, and the thing, like, I don't necessarily want to go around like cheating on my partner either. Like, oh, sorry.
No, this is a perfectly normal thing to have some. This is the place to do it. So, but, no, it's a normal thing. It's a normal thing to be frustrated about. The fact here's the thing. You might be at an impasse here because he went into this, like you guys both went into this relationship kind of with the understanding that it was monogamous and you were straight, and that understanding changed for you and not for him. And it's not his fault that you had this awakening, and it's not your fault that he wanted this to stay as it was. So either this, like, you guys have to come to some new arrangement. It might be in order for you to be happy, in order for you to explore this, or you're going to have to let this go unexplored, or there has to be a break or something, because this doesn't sound like a thing that you want to let go unexplored.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's there's a term called PUD, P-U-D, poly under duress, where one partner kind of gets pushed into being in an open thing because they know it's the one thing that's going to make their partner happy. I'm hoping that your partner doesn't open up to that just to make you happy. But I also think that, if this is one thing that's going to either, I don't want to say scratch that itch, but help you figure out your sexuality, and hopefully, and help either solidify the relationship or make you figure out this isn't where you want to be. This is a thing that you and your partner really need to take some time and figure out, should we open this up at least, for a time to figure out where you want to be.
Yeah. And
I also,
on top of this, where even if we were in a position where like opening up was an option, like getting the emotional bond that's needed for me to even realize if this is a thing or not, like.
Yeah, and I do also want to raise just a couple more caveats here. And the first one is, it could I've had this happen with so many friends who are women who came out as bi or pan, or even realized later on that they were lesbian, is they have one way of looking at relationships with men, and it's very different when they get into a relationship with someone of another gender. And so for me, I know for me, I am demisexual with guys, but if if I'm on a date with a woman or an NB person, like, it's a whole different ball game, and I get like giddy 12-year-old first kiss, kind of like, oh my God, excitement. And it's very different than when I'm with a guy. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just very different. So the first point here is, it could very well be that you're not demisexual with women. If women or non-binary people or whoever you want to pursue are out there, it might not actually take you as long if you realize that you are expressing it differently with them. But the other thing that I want to stress here is that there's this conception, even among a lot of people in the queer community, that in order to be bi or pan, you need more than one. And that's not the case. So, like, think about a straight relationship, and you're getting into a relationship and you think, man, I want to, is this the person I want to be with? I could be having sex with this person, and this person, and I can't now. And that's kind of panic inducing a little bit. It's the same exact thing if you're bi. It just happens to also be people of other genders. You're still making a commitment to one person and foregoing other people. And it doesn't, it's not more expected of you as a bi person to have more than one partner, or to have to explore, or to have to experiment. If you want to, you should, and you should find a way to negotiate that with your partner or come to a new relationship conclusion. But just because you are realizing you might be bi or you might be pan does not by itself mean that you now need to go outside of your marriage to find other relationships. That's not something that is required of you. You are still fully bi or fully pan, even if you have only had sex with this person and they are the person you married and that is it. That does not count as something that invalidates your queer identity. So just putting that out there as well, in case that was a pressure you were feeling.
I greatly appreciate that. Oh my goodness gracious. You guys are incredible. I'm only familiar with V. I've been watching Talk Heathen and called in there, I think once, maybe twice. And I'm getting more introduced to your work, V, and I really appreciate you. And I'm going to have to look up everyone else, because that's just, I mean,
yay!
You look everyone else up. But thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you letting me, word vomit all over the place.
Thank you for calling in. It's a
for.
really good conversation, and I'm excited we got to talk with you tonight.
Yeah, best of luck and congratulations. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. We are coming up on 8:30, but we do have one more caller who's been on the line for about 40 minutes. So I'd love to talk to Purple.
Oh, yes.
Sure. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
I think that's Nebraska. I don't know. I don't know all the states.
You're correct.
Abbreviations.
It's Nebraska.
Okay, good. We're right. All right. How can we help you today, Purple?
So, first thing is the tiny comment to Miss Yvette is the alphabet always seems to get me. The getting Penelope first, totally fine, but it's always that alphabet that gets me. So, secondly, basically my question feels complicated, but I have a feeling it's just because I'm not really like well versed in all this in like terminology and identification and things like that. I'm a cis man, and so a lot of it's just still very foreign to me. My main question it really has to do with what, and this feels like a really Googleable question, but I feel like it's not. What exactly is I guess gender? I understand gender expression. Gender identity kind of confuses me. I understand obviously the difference between that there is a difference between sex and gender, but I have a hard time pinning down what specifically it is. And the reason I say it's not not like an easily Googleable question is because I really feel like it's not something like you can scientifically test for easily. It's a very personal kind of thing, but I think I would at least hope there would be some kind of an answer that could be reasonably conveyed to someone who maybe doesn't have that same experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, I could jump in, but I do want to make sure we give Yvette some time here as well, since we were talking about sex and gender at the beginning of the show.
You might have the terminology down better than me, because this is one that I'm like, all right, I believe sex is the genitals, and I believe that gender is the how you're is the what you eternally feel like, and I don't want to fuck that one up. So you might have better vocabulary than I do, and I always feel like I'm going to fuck up the vocab, and I never want to. And so I'm going to defer to someone who definitely has is clearly explaining this stuff way better than I am. So go on.
I feel you. I just did a stream on body positivity, and I'm like, I don't know any of the terms. Like, I hope I'm not offending people by accident here.
Yeah, it's the body positivity ones are hard.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said body positivity conversations are hard, and I write about diets for a living. And there's I put a pic. It's just on the body positivity thing. I posted a before after of me from weight loss, and I got emails saying that I was being antibody positive. So that one's a landmine, or a minefield. That's what I meant to say. See, words not working for me right now. But yeah, it's
all right.
Well, I mean, this is V, please go ahead.
So I do want to I think I want to frame this in a way that I've been thinking about it recently. And again, words, who knows? But here's how I see it. So have you done like a 23andMe kind of DNA test ever, Purple? Like, do you know kind of the makeup genetically of what you are geographically?
I know half of it. My dad did one.
Okay, cool. So let's say I grew up thinking that I was 60% Italian, 40% German. Turns out I'm not German at all. I did one of those, blew my mind. I was like, what is this? I built my identity around being German. But so for me, gender's a lot like that. There are physical components, right? I can say I am 10% Irish, and I'm also 10% of Middle Eastern descent. And because 23andMe is built by white people, the concept of any, geographical areas outside of Western Europe is very vague. So they didn't give me specifics, but apparently I am as Middle Eastern as I am Irish. Now that's my genetic makeup. That is who I am as a person. And now I get to choose what my identity is, right? Now I get to choose, what am I going to identify with? What part of my culture, which culture am I going to pick? How am I going to dive into this? And for me, a lot of even before I knew I was Irish at all, I loved Irish history. I loved Irish mythology. I loved Irish music. So when I think about myself, I like to think about that 10% of myself, which is Irish, and all of the rest is like, yeah, also there's that. And I like that I'm all of this, but like, I'm picking this 10% and I'm making this my identity. Yes, there's genetic backing to it. Yes, we can talk about what it means to be Irish genetically and, as far as demographics go and all of that. But socially, for myself, from an identity point of view, I have an Irish penny whistle. Is that going to be in my DNA code? No, but that's part of my identity. That's who I am. That's what I choose. And so for me, in the same way that a lot of the time we construct artificially concepts around race, concepts around geography and what it means to be of certain descent, we are also constructing things about gender and what gender means and what it means to be of this, persuasion or that persuasion. So for me, yes, there's always going to be a biological component. There's always going to be a physiological component, a neurological component. But when we talk about identity, we're talking about what culture we're growing up in, what culture we're choosing as our own, what culture is saying about us to us. And all of that and where we situate ourselves in that is what identity is. So for me, I'm a non-binary person. And who knows if that has something to do with my hormones or my chromosomes. I've never been tested. I don't know. What I do know is that I know where I exist in the culture. I know what culture says about me. I know what people say to me. I know where I can find community. And all of that combined is what makes me choose an identity in being non-binary. And so for me, that's kind of the most straightforward way I can put it without knowing any of like the hard science behind it. Yes, gender is a construct. Race is also a construct. Yes, there are genetic things that play into both. But when we're talking about what identity is, it's what we choose to be and what we've been given by our cultures.
Okay.
If I can give a parallel to one thing, I'm genetically Jewish, but I'm culturally an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So I guess the main reason that like I bring it up in that way is because, and it's not necessarily about making things easier for like everybody else, but I feel like it feels like there are easier ways to approach some of this. And I guess the thought that has always come to my mind, and I really want to know maybe what part of it makes you bristle a little bit, because I get the feeling it's going to make somebody bristle, and I want to make sure I'm kind of couching that. But I guess to me, when it comes to the, phrasing like he, him pronouns, they, them pronouns, all of that, I always honor what people tell me they want to be called. And I have no problem with that. With a name like Purple, I really have a leg to stand on. But so the main thing is I'm trying to understand, like, if we simply made, if we tied male to only genetics, kind of like what we do, and I don't mean to like trivialize people, but kind of like what we do with animals. We don't give animals a gender. To me, it feels like it would be simply easier to do away with as much as possible gender norms, so to speak, and kind of gender expectations than it would be to try to kind of allow people more or less to identify with whatever gender, just kind of in a perfect world kind of scenario, gender just wouldn't, like, men could wear dresses, women could wear
Purple, are you a gender abolitionist?
Yeah,
What is this turn of events?
Right. I'm wondering, first and foremost, if you saw the first half of the show where we kind of pointed out that genetics are not that simple. So I think that's a really important piece to remember here, is that our genetics are not straightforward or straight down the middle in that kind of way. But the more important reality is that we don't get to, like, Sim City construct our society from scratch. And while there's a lot of value in, getting away from, like, why does everything have to be gendered, and recognizing some of the difficulty and the messiness of some of these constructs grew up under duress. Our understanding of gender is a function of a lot of revisionist history. It's a function of a lot of oppression. It's a function of a lot of people just kind of toiling around in the darkness trying to understand these things. The idea that we are beginning to have any type of, like, genetic research into things like gender identity and sexuality is kind of new in a lot of ways. The idea that a university would actually dedicate a research wing to any of this is really important and exciting, but it's new. So yeah, a lot of these constructs are really messy, and we kind of need to be willing to work within them, even as we want to maybe expand and change some of these ideas through that scholastic infighting and sort of that cultural Darwinism, is like new ideas come up and other ideas replace them, and all of this. I think we need to accept and acknowledge that people have been working very hard in a lot of different ways culturally to give us what limited cultural technology and verbiage and whatever else we currently have, and to be maybe mindful about dismissing that.
Well, and I guess so. You're absolutely right that a lot of it's very new, and I don't mean to, like, present this kind of weird pie in the sky genetic abolition or gender abolitionist kind of position. It's and quite frankly, I generally don't get nervous, but I am kind of mincing my words poorly here. But the example that I always kind of give is, it's easier to get people to accept that anyone can wear pants than it is to get people to accept that this specific gendered person, this we'll say woman for the sake of the conversation, this woman wants to wear pants. If we go back to 100 years ago, a woman wanting to wear pants was absurd, but it's easier to get people to accept that a woman wants to wear pants than this woman is in fact not a woman, and her entire genetic and chromosomal makeup is just somehow not what she really is. Like, in my head, it's just easier to get people to accept, no, women can wear pants, than it is to accept that this person that presents genetically in every other kind of every other forward-facing way presents feminine is actually a man. That's the part that confuses me, and that's the part where I say it would just be easier to give people a male or female label based on their sex, and then just say that, yeah, women can wear pants, men can wear dresses and makeup and do whatever they want, like all that kind of stuff. Just seems like an easier way to go, because we've done a lot of that already in allowing men, to be a little bit more girly recently, and allowing women to be tomboys and such. Like that's
yeah.
the example.
I hear that
see where you're coming from, Purple. And to me, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like I don't see color. And I'm sorry to keep moving it back into the area of discussions about race, because why not make this more volatile and confusing? But no, the whole thing here is, I think right now we are in an area where people are saying the things they used to say about people of various races and cultures. They're now saying about people of different. Oh, I just don't see gender. I just don't care what you call yourself. Why don't we just have one label that everybody goes by? And that's a step forward. Yeah. And that's cool that's like where we are now in the conversation, because that is progress. But I would say that in the same way we realized that I don't see color was actually, let's pretend it doesn't exist and not be offended by it and try and homogenize it. Instead, what we should be doing is finding ways to celebrate the diversity that humans offer just naturally. I think we should be doing the same with gender. And so, yes, on one level, I see where you're coming from. And honestly, there are very many queer people who have been gender abolitionists and who have said gender is oppressive. We don't need it. Get rid of it. And there are points to be made there. But for me, what I'm saying is, I find happiness in my gender. I find joy in it. I don't struggle in my non-binary identity. I struggle because the rest of the world doesn't accept me. But personally, when I'm by myself, I love who I am and I love playing with gender. I'm trying to get up to $350 a month on Patreon. And when I get there, I'm doing a live stream where I dress in drag and do lip sync, and all my patrons get to meet my drag persona. And that's going to be so much fun. And I'm so excited about that. It's a space to play. So for me, I would go in the opposite direction and say that instead of saying we don't need it, get rid of it, say everybody gets to choose. And here's the thing. There is this talking point that a lot of gender critical people and trans exclusionary radical feminists have been putting out there, that trans people and NB people are denying the reality of sex, which certainly is not the case. Nobody's saying that male and female don't exist. Nobody is saying that the biology doesn't exist. What we're saying is we need to radically shift the way we're thinking about it. So when you're talking with somebody about their gender identity, really their genetic makeup, their biology shouldn't factor into that conversation. Like Yvette said at the beginning, when you look at someone and you make an assumption about their gender, you're not looking at their chromosomes. And chances are they haven't looked at their chromosomes either. So,
and their chromosomes are more complicated than that. We can't break people down into just two categories because those categories don't exist.
Right. So there's a lot to unpack here, and we're already a little over time. Yeah, I got very excited about this call, but that's a good question. And I think we got to some really interesting conclusions tonight.
No, absolutely, and I definitely don't want to take any more of your time. I certainly hope that nothing I said came off as negative in any way. It certainly wasn't meant to be, and quite frankly, you and Miss Yvette and Mr. Christy are all incredibly helpful, and that's exactly the kind of insight that I was going for, because like I said, I have not had that experience, so that is exactly what I'm after. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thanks for asking the hard questions and putting yourself out there. That's all we ask, and you're doing great.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a nice night.
Take care.
I feel like I talked a lot tonight. I apologize.
No, not at all. I just want to lay it out that some people...
Great.
Yeah, well, and to take all of that and distill it again, like gender, or rather sex, is not an either or checkbox. It is a bimodal distribution. If you're not familiar with what that picture looks like, look it up or find links to it in the show notes to this episode. And also, yeah, gender is beautiful. I wouldn't want to get rid of it, even as my gender can be fluid and a little bit confusing, not necessarily to, well, yeah, a little bit to me, but mostly to my parents and to other people. Even as it's confusing, it's a beautiful thing and worth embracing. So from here, I suppose it's time to kind of thank everybody for helping us put this together. Of course, everybody who is watching, and Yvette, you very much for being here and walking us through some of these ideas. But I want to absolutely make time to recognize our incredible crew who puts all of this together each week. All of our call screeners and note takers and audio screeners and everything else that we've got going on. We're just incredibly grateful to y'all for all of the hard work in making the three of us look so good. And outside of that, Yvette, I want to give you a chance to say goodnight and just let you know how much we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you guys for having me. I was about to say it is a large effort to make me look good. So thank you, crew. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a blast. I feel like sometimes I was talking outside of my pay grade, so I'm trying my best to ally. There are things that are definitely not quite in I don't know if in my wheelhouse is the way to phrase this, but I'm doing what I can. Some of this is not the science that I always discuss, but I'm trying, and I'm hoping I can help.
Yeah, well, if people are incredibly angry or absolutely delighted by your responses, where can they you? Where can they find you on the web?
I feel like angry and delighted are the only responses to me. I'm either at the SciBabe or SciBabe anywhere I am. So the SciBabe over on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch, and SciBabe over at Facebook, and SciBabe TV over on YouTube. That's the one. But
that's the one. The one we're on now.
Yeah, indeed. And I do a live stream on Friday night and Sunday at noon to dispel COVID myths and to, occasionally I lick the screen because we need to see if we can transmit COVID via the computer because of course that's a thing. Oh yeah. Look, we haven't gotten out of the house in like 8 months now. We have been locked in the house for over 200 days. We need to get out. I'm tired.
We're looking all of our computer screens up in here.
I think we're all going a little nuts.
Just a tad.
Yep.
All right. Well, if you liked what you saw here tonight and you want more Secular Sexuality, you can find us on YouTube at where you're looking right now. Hi, you're on YouTube. You found us. Also, we have a Twitter at Secular Sex. We have an amazing fan group on Facebook. And I do want to give a shout out on Halloween, the week of Halloween. We are doing an episode that we call a mailbag episode. So we take all of the emails and voicemails that we get sent over the course of the month or two, and we answer those live on air. But we're also trying it out on Facebook now. So our lovely mods have put up a post that says, hey, this is a mailbag Halloween ask your question post. Ask a question here. We might answer it on air. So if you have a question that you want to talk with us about, you don't want to send an email, you don't want to call in, the Facebook group is a good way to go. So make sure to check that out. Christy, anything else?
Yeah, of course, people can leave us voicemails. They can send us emails. There are all these different ways to get in touch. We, want to remind people of our Teespring shop as well as our Patreon. All of these opportunities to support the show, to participate the show, to be a part of this community. And, I hope you enjoy those things. And, maybe after taking a look at some of those sexy T-shirts and other merch offerings, you may take a moment for yourself and give yourself a big old orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.